Let's jump right into this explainer. Right now, there is a massive, unprecedented geopolitical shift unfolding in the Western Pacific. I mean, we are talking about a structural transformation that is fundamentally altering the balance of power in Asia, and it's happening right before our eyes. We're going to unpack the exact shopping list behind the largest military buildup by any U.S. ally since the peak of the Cold War.
Let's anchor this with the staggering number at the center of it all: $320 billion. That is the exact financial commitment Japan has laid out to significantly expand its military capabilities over just a 5-year period, from 2023 to 2027. It's a precise doubling of their military budget. But to truly grasp why a number that huge is sending shockwaves through the international community, we really need to look at the foundational identity of the nation that's actually spending it.
And herein lies the core paradox of our entire explainer today. Since 1947, Article 9 of the Japanese Constitution has literally outlawed war as a means to settle international disputes. They maintain a self-defense force that is strictly limited to protecting the homeland. So you have to ask yourself, how exactly does a constitutionally pacifist nation suddenly justify a $320 billion military expansion?
Section 1. The Pacifist Paradox: Structural Transformation of a Defense Posture.
To figure this out, we've got to examine the exact policy changes that triggered this massive shift. The turning point arrived in December 2022 under Prime Minister Fumio Kishida with the release of 3 foundational security documents. Put together, these represent the most dramatic shift in Japanese military posture since 1945. You see, for decades, stretching all the way back to the 1970s, Japan had this self-imposed ceiling, restricting defense spending to just 1% of its GDP. Well, these new documents totally shattered that ceiling, effectively doubling their defense budget target to 2% of GDP by 2027.
The sheer scale of this structural transformation is absolutely wild. By 2027, Japan's defense budget is projected to reach around $80 to $85 billion annually. To put that into perspective, that means Japan will outspend the United Kingdom, they'll outspend France. In fact, Japan is going to outspend every single European NATO member, making them the 3rd largest defense spender among U.S. allies globally. So this isn't just some incremental budget tweak, it's a total overhaul of their military-industrial capacity.
Section 2. Japan's Offensive Arsenal, the Counterstrike Shopping List.
So what exactly are they buying with all that cash? Let's move from the macro budgets to the actual hardware, because the weapons Japan is acquiring read exactly like preparation for a very specific type of conflict. The crucial thing to watch here is how Japan navigates its pacifist constitution while simultaneously buying offensive weapons. Notice the diplomatic euphemism they use: counterstrike capability. Now, that sounds distinctly defensive, right? But the operational reality tells a completely different story. They are purchasing 500 American-made Tomahawk Block V cruise missiles, which boast a range of 1,600 kilometers. That means Japan now has the unprecedented capability to strike major command centers and military installations deep inside mainland China and North Korea. So, linguistically defensive? Sure. Operationally highly offensive? Absolutely.
And honestly, those Tomahawks are just the beginning of this formidable shopping list. Beyond the U.S. supply, Japan is investing heavily in its own indigenous standoff missiles. They are actively upgrading their domestically produced Type 12 surface-to-ship missiles, extending their range from a modest 200 kilometers to well over 1,000 kilometers. Plus, they're acquiring JASSM-ER air-launched cruise missiles to equip their fighter jets. We are literally watching a country rapidly build the capacity to strike targets from land, sea, and air across the entirety of the Western Pacific. For a nation that formally renounces war, that is an undeniably extraordinary long-range arsenal.
Section 3. Sea, Cyber, and Space, Multi-Domain Dominance. Modern warfare obviously isn't just about cruise missiles. So let's look at how Japan is sweeping its naval forces and tech capabilities into the 21st century across some highly contested domains. We're actually witnessing what might be the most breathtaking historical irony of this entire buildup. Japan is converting 2 of its helicopter destroyers into light aircraft carriers, making them fully capable of operating F-35B stealth fighters. One of these ships is the JS Kaga. Now, if you know your history, the original Imperial Japanese Navy Kaga was one of the primary aircraft carriers that launched the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941. Today, the new Kaga is being retrofitted to launch American-made combat aircraft. It is a stunning, physical symbol of just how deeply the geopolitical alignments in the Pacific have shifted over the decades.
And beneath the surface, Japan is positioning itself perfectly from a tactical standpoint. China's most significant naval weakness is widely considered to be anti-submarine warfare. Directly countering that, Japan operates arguably the best conventional submarine fleet in all of Asia. They maintain 22 ultra-quiet diesel-electric submarines, heavily equipped with advanced lithium-ion batteries that allow for dramatically extended underwater endurance. In any potential conflict, these practically silent submarines operating around the first island chain would be Japan's most lethal tool for exploiting China's vulnerabilities.
All of this feeds into a comprehensive, multi-domain defense umbrella. They aren't just buying ships and subs, they're operating sophisticated Aegis destroyers specifically geared for ballistic missile defense against evolving threats from North Korea and China. Furthermore, their cyber defense command is absolutely exploding, going from just 890 personnel up to 20,000, aiming directly at active, offensive cyber operations. And looking up into space, they are deploying their own early warning satellites to reduce their reliance on the United States. It's a massive parallel modernization effort happening across literally every conceivable front.
Section 4. The China Catalyst, an unprecedented strategic challenge.
We've seen the macro budget, and we've analyzed the weapons themselves. Now we have to talk about the geopolitical reality driving every single item on this $320 billion shopping list. For decades, Japanese diplomacy relied heavily on careful, calculated ambiguity when it came to Beijing. Well, that era is completely over. In their 2022 national security strategy, Japan officially labeled China an unprecedented strategic challenge. This is the strongest, most unambiguous language Tokyo has ever used. The entire rearmament program, from the Tomahawks to the silent submarines we just talked about, is fundamentally oriented toward one single strategic reality: countering China in the Western Pacific.
To truly understand why Japan feels this intense sense of urgency, you just need to keep one number in mind: 110 kilometers. That is the exact distance between the shores of Taiwan and Japan's westernmost territory, Yonaguni Island. It is incredibly close. Because of this stark geography, Japanese defense planners strictly recognize that any potential Chinese military contingency involving Taiwan automatically and immediately becomes a Japanese contingency. They are physically just too close to stay out of the crossfire.
Section 5. The Execution Challenge, buying weapons versus building a military.
Now, committing $320 billion on paper is one thing, but actually transforming a pacifist state into a dominant military power involves massive, real-world logistical hurdles. Decades of keeping defense spending artificially low at that 1% limit has caused Japan's domestic defense industry to severely atrophy. Companies have maintained very low production rates, and their material supply chains are super fragile. They simply can't just flip a switch and double production overnight. Because of these immense industrial hurdles, a huge portion of that $320 billion is actually going straight to American defense contractors for systems like the Tomahawks and F-35s. Sure, this deepens their strategic integration with the US, but it also creates a heavy, long-term dependency on foreign supply lines.
And that brings us to the final, most critical unknown of this entire explainer. History consistently shows us that buying $320 billion worth of advanced weaponry is actually the easy part. The true test for Japan will be whether a society that has constitutionally and culturally renounced war for over 75 years can rapidly rebuild its industrial base, recruit the necessary personnel, and forge the proactive military culture required to actually employ these weapons effectively in combat. It's a fascinating pacifist paradox that will inevitably shape the future of Asia. So, the ultimate question remains: can they do it? Take a moment to really think about what this incredible shift means for the global balance of power going forward.